The Australian women's series against India just monstered them in the one-day internationals. That was nasty. I mean, Australia didn't win the last ICC tournament. They don't like that. They don't like not winning things because they're just used to winning everything. But 3 ODIs, game 1, bowled out India for 100, an even 100. Megan Shute, prior to South Australia, 5 for 19. Australia did stumble in reply. That was interesting that they ended up 5 down. And Georgia Vole debuting with Phoebe Litchfield as a young pairing opening the batting, given that Healy's out injured. Georgia Vole, part of the Georgia Index of Georgias in Australian domestic women's cricket, of which there are many. And they were smashing it initially, and then Renuka Singh Thakur gets Litchfield out, gets hit for 3 4s in a row and then gets her out off the 4th ball. Then gets Perry and Mooney out in the same over. Renuka Singh Thakur, we've loved her work, and she had a great Commonwealth Games, swings the ball, does it at decent pace, is beautifully accurate. And then there's a couple more wickets fall to the young leg spinner Priya Mishra. Georgia Vole takes them through. Game 2, Australia bat first, 371 for 8. Absolutely thumping it everywhere. 3rd biggest score ever for Australia in a one-day international for the women's team, behind the Denmark game where Belinda Clark made the double ton. And there was a game against Pakistan in Melbourne where Zoe Goss, my childhood hero of women's cricket, made 94 off 55 balls. That was in 97 as well. So everybody's talking about new eras of batting, but they had some pretty aggressive stuff back in the day. Anyway, Georgia Vole, second gamer, 101. Century in her second match, that's what Lanning did, wasn't it?
She did.
Century, second game. And put on 130 with Litchfield, who made 60. Then Perry makes 105. Mooney makes 56, all well in excess of a run a ball. Could have beaten 400, but they lost a few wickets at the end cheaply. And then India, all that for 249. Sutherland, 4 for 39. That's a shellacking.
And, this was the rivalry which has been talked up a lot. When it comes to bilateral cricket in particular, neither team made the final, like you said, of the latest ICC T20 World Cup. New Zealand and South Africa did. But then the series was looked at as a battle where both of them will rise from that World Cup disappointment, and this could be a cracker of a series. But India didn't show up at all in those first 2
nor in the third one.
Nor in the third one, even though I think the best chance they had was in the third one. But just on Renuka Singh Thakur, I think it's still one of the sweetest things that I've ever seen in a cricket practice session. It happened on the Gold Coast in 21 when Mitchell Starc was helping out with the women's team. Obviously, Alisha Healy was part of the team during a test match, and Renuka Singh Thakur was having a net. She was bowling side by side with Mitchell Starc, and you could just see the awe in her face. She would bowl a ball, and then she would just stand there, watch Mitchell Starc bowl a ball, just to see if, he can catch her glance, and then she would run back and she would bowl just to see if Mitchell Starc had seen her deliver a ball. It was one of the sweetest things I've ever seen, and I'm a big fan of her, the way she swings the ball, and there's a lot to like, but not a lot to like with what India did overall in the series.
No, so game 3, Australia 298, Litchfield and Vole another 50 partnership. Then they get out. Then Perry and Mooney get out cheaply. They're 4 for 78. There's a little opening for India. And Annabelle Sutherland, she might be your favourite player. You're always talking about Annabelle Sutherland.
Everything.
Makes 110, having taken 4 for in the previous game. Gardner makes 50. Talia McGrath makes 56, gets them to 298. So until this point, every one-day or T20 international century ever made by an Australian woman was in the top 4. No one outside the top 4 had ever made one. So Sutherland at 5 was the first to explore those reaches of outer space. Another quirk that I noticed while looking this up, Meg Lanning and Karen Rolton, between them, 23 one-day international centuries. Every other player for Australia combined, 46. So Lanning and Rolton made half as many as every other Australian women's player in history. Yeah. Anyway, India fell over in reply, except for Smriti Mandana, who made 105 but didn't have enough support. Harleen Deol made 38. Got lucky, got dropped a bunch of times. Everyone else fell away. Ash Gardner, 5 for 30. She's such a gun with the ball now as well. You think of Gardner hitting sixes, but was it 13 wickets in the test at Trent Bridge last year? And that seemed to signal a tipping point into being a complete frontline proper. She was always a very good bowler, but you fully rely on her as a bowler without any sort of hesitation about there being some all-rounder status involved.
Oh yeah, I mean, and she's become Australia's crunch player as well. I wouldn't say they were under any threat here, even though Smriti Mandhana batted as well as she did. But yeah, she just delivers, and she started getting the big hauls, hasn't she? I think till 2-3 years ago, it always felt like she was always brought in after everybody else, and she would end up with getting 2-3 crucial wickets. But now she's getting the big haul. That Test match you mentioned, where Annabel Sutherland also made a Test 100, like how good that innings was, but. It's almost when people talk about Indian men's cricket and the depth, every player almost has 3 other shadow players who can just come into that position. It's that scary with Australian women's cricket, right? You speak about Georgia Wall and Phoebe Litchfield now. They already look settled. They look like they can dominate the sport for the next 10, 12 years.
Right.
One series in as a pair.
Yeah.
And
you've got Healy to come back.
Exactly. And Annabel Sutherland, every time you think of Elise Perry, it's not like Elise Perry is going anywhere anytime soon. And you already have Annabel Sutherland waiting in the wings to take over that role. So, and Talia McGrath is already there. It is a scary depth. In a way, who knows, right? You remember what happened when they did not get to the final in 2017 in the 50-over World Cup. They just completely killed everyone else for the next 6 years. And the fact that they couldn't get to the final this time, probably, who knows, it could be the second phase of that complete domination of world women's cricket.
Before the break, you, Bharat, you've moved to Australia. God forbid if you would ever need legal representation for anything, you're a very good boy, and that would not be necessary. But you never know. Someone else could make something happen in your life where you need to chat to someone who knows their way around the legal system. It's complicated. It's confusing. It's intimidating. It's expensive. It's scary. That's why we're all about Maury Bees.
Yeah.
Maurice Blackburn Lawyers. Their whole thing is helping out people who don't necessarily have all the advantages of finding their way around the legal system, helping people who don't have buckets of cash to throw at lawyers to get whatever they want and get their own way. Maurice Blackburn is the firm for you. They were founded in 1919, so they're 100 plus years of helping working Australians. They've got offices across the country. Should you need them, go and find Maurice Blackburn. We'll be back in a second. It is the final word. It's season 17, episode 15. It is also brought to you by NordVPN. If you want to get a VPN, if you know that you need to access something that is outside the country you're in, and there's some annoying firewall or this is not available in your location. Why isn't it available in my location? It should be available in my location. Yeah. NordVPN, easy to use, one-click connecting. I can verify for this because I use it. I just click with one click and it connects. You can auto-connect, zero-click protection, so it just automatically turns on. 7,000 servers in 111 countries, so you can change your location wherever you want around the world. High speed, one of the fastest VPNs out there. And they've upgraded their device access, so you can put it on 10 different devices now.
Oh, wow.
10. Who has 10 devices? Not many people.
Well, some Gujarati businessmen I know do. So if they are listening to this is the product for you. I mean, some journalists do as well.
Yeah.
One for contacts, one for their partner, one for someone else.
Yep.
So, or not VPN. And the best part about it is when you press connect, you're connected.
You're connected. It happens. It works. It's on every major platform: Windows, Android, iOS, Mac OS, Linux, Android TV, whatever you got. Is it on Ubuntu? I don't know. But it probably is. They probably found a way. So nordvpn.com/TFW. That's where you get the discount. Plus you get 4 months free. If you sign up to the longer thing, you get a 30-day money-back guarantee. Easy done. Links in the show notes. Check it out. Harry Brook, number one in the world, Bharat. 4 Test hundreds this year, average 61 this year, average of 61 overall. And he's boosted the number of England players who average over 50, because Joe Root does now as well. They're up to 10.
Wow. Yeah.
It used to be, they were trailing 8-10 against the Australians. But the Australians have, they're losing ground.
Marnus is
down.
Yeah.
So it was 8-11 actually. Marnus has dropped. Brook and Root are back up. But Harry Brook this year, thoughts?
Last year before the start of the Ashes, and I think I must have told you this as well, I saw him at training. I was like, with that technique, the technique he had at that point, I thought Hazelwood and Cummins will be a handful, and they were to start with. But the fact that he could come back from that, and the way he batted for the rest of the Ashes series, and the way he's dominated especially in Pakistan and New Zealand, and in England now. He got runs in England as well. So obviously there will be some of us who would say, well, we want to see him in Australia, we want to see him in India. Not just because those are the
Gabba.
Get him to the Gabba, and get him to Nagpur or Indore. and it's a pity. I mean, obviously he couldn't make it to India for personal reasons, and we all respect that. But I would love to see him, and he's going to dominate. He's made an IPL 100 as well in India. It's not that he hasn't batted in India, but he just has everything, and he's got that nerve, doesn't he? He's just, when you look at players like him, you expect them to be manic. Glenn Maxwell, for example, or even David Warner at the crease. But he's so still, and he's scoring at the rate of knots without looking like he's scoring at the rate of knots. I think that's what makes him stand out a little bit. Even Travis Head, there's so many movements. He hits at everything, hits the ball. But I think the biggest strength of Harry Brook is he's got all those shots, but he's also got enough of a solid technique for him to survive and play different kinds of innings, which I think we will see from him. And he's benefited a lot from batting alongside Joe Root. We saw that big partnership against Pakistan in Pakistan, but just they seem to feed off each other, to the two Yorkshiremen. Deservedly number one. But like I said, he'll have that one asterisk attached to him. Till he comes, he doesn't have to wait too long to come to Australia. In 12 months' time, we'll be talking about Harry Brook. Not here, but at the Adelaide Oval, because next year is the Christmas test. Thank God for that. I'll stop missing Isha's birthdays. It's her birthday, during this Gabba test. So about time I stopped missing Isha's birthday. So that's a good schedule change.
Sure.
Thank you, Cricket Australia.
But he'll be in Perth first.
He will be in Perth first. But I'm talking about this date next year.
This date.
He'll be preparing for the Adelaide test. And England keep touring India all the time, so he'll be 2 years away from India. So, and I can see him do what he's doing the rest of the world in Australia and India. And if anything, he'll be even more mature and even more ready to succeed here.
And he might be pushing Joe Root to go on longer as well, because if Root's feeling good about it, he's got the Yorkshire connection, he's got the younger guy coming through, someone he can bat with. Root for so long was just doing it on his own. Carrying that team around, and now he's got someone he can go with. He's made 500s this year, Joe Root.
Yes, he's been
which is nuts.
And also, it's got such a nature feel to it. Root and Brook.
Root and Brook.
It's got
Root and Branch review. We're having a Root and Brook review. Let's cross the border from where you were talking about in India to Pakistan, a bit more Jason Gillespie stuff. What's going on with... So we basically thought, 3 weeks ago or whatever it was, we thought Dizzy's done. He'll be out of there. He'd been bumped off the selection panel despite having about 50 people on it. Then they ditched Gary Kirsten. Then they asked Jason Gillespie to do the white ball job as well, but they didn't offer to pay him any extra money. So he was pretty unimpressed about both of those things, and we just assumed he was going to quit. But a bit of brinksmanship here. He's like, if I quit, I don't get my contract paid out. Yeah. If they sack me, I do. So he said, no, I'm not quitting. He called their bluff, basically. So now the PCB, it seems, my reading of it would be that they've gone again. They've gone back to the well, and they're like, we're going to sack, or we're going to not renew the contract of your assistant coach who you picked. So Tim Nielsen, who coached the Australian team a million years ago, didn't quite coach Gillespie, came on just after Gillespie had finished up as an international player, but would have played with him at South Australia a lot. And again, Jason Gillespie's not consulted, and he's clearly pissed off about this, that he doesn't get a say in who's going to be his assistant coach. He's the coach of the test team and doesn't get to have any input. It feels like more brinksmanship, more like, go on, quit, because we don't want to have to pay out your 4-year contract after 6 months.
I go back to that cafe where I met Dizzy I think it was in May, before he officially started his campaign with Pakistan. He had already been named their head coach, a test coach. And the meeting was all about wrestling. I had just come off my first wrestling event. He wanted to know all about it. A big wrestling fan is Dizzy. Yep. And I remember telling him, whatever you saw during the peak Attitude Era or your peak wrestling fandom era, you're going to get something even more dramatic when you take over as Pakistan coach. And he was prepared for it. It's not that I needed to tell him that. He'd consulted Geoff Lawson. He'd spoken to others who had coached in Pakistan. But that's the thing. You can know whatever you want to know about going to Pakistan and being a coach. And then, as they say in wrestling, the bell rings. And then the bell has rung a few times for Dizzy Gillespie in the last few months. You're right. It's been such a roller coaster ride. the Laws in that first, lost to Bangladesh, the lost to England, then comes back and wins the 2 test matches, at which point he's no longer coach and Alim Dar is selector. And some of the things he said off the record have been very, very interesting. Maybe off air, I'll tell you what it's been. But it's been a surreal experience. And even when he won that Adelaide, the ODI in Adelaide, I remember a few people talking to him post-match, and you could see he had very little idea of what was happening. And the fact that he came and did commentary from the Fox studio while the match was on, while he was coach, because he wasn't coach, he was a match day strategist. Like all sorts of crazy things happening with Dizzy in charge, or more so with Pakistan having not in charge. So Tim Nielsen and Dizzy have worked a lot together. They worked together for the Sagas as well before they made the move to Pakistan. So it's one of those classic subcontinental moves. Like, you take the first you take the man and right below the top man, as if to so that they think that the top man gets a little shaky, and then they go for the head of the snake. But it's going to be it's in a way even more fascinating than what Pakistan play as a test team or do on the field as a test team.
Well, yeah, I mean, and he could, if he plays the game well enough, he gets out of it 3.5 years early, gets a full payout, and he's got the tick on his coach on his CV of having been an international coach when he goes for a job that might have slightly more stability. Like Andrew McDonald probably finishes up in, I don't know, he might do a couple more years of 2027, something like that. Coaches tend to have a life cycle, and who knows, maybe it's Jason Gillespie shooting for it then. Afghanistan are just starting a long series against Zimbabwe, 3 T20s, 3 ODIs, 2 tests between these teams. So a lot of cricket. They've just played the first T20. Hazratul Azazai is back. This is the main reason I wanted to talk about that. I like a chunky lad playing international cricket. I want Safraz Khan out there. I want Hazratullah out there. Husky, someone you can describe as husky. He's batting number 3. Used to be an opener when he was smashing it everywhere, but they're sorted for ease and whiz as far as openers go at the moment. Although the usual opening combination of Ibrahim Zadran and Gurbaz didn't open in this particular match, but nonetheless, they've got him batting at first drop. He made 20 during a top order shambles. Richard Ngarava, the Zimbabwean, took wickets early. Karim Janat made 54, who we've seen a few good things from. Muhammad Nabi, the old stage, at 44. They got to 144, 6 down. And then Zimbabwe, made a good start. Brian Bennett, who's a young opening bat, Test and ODI debuts this year, made his T20 debut just over a year ago. He made 49. They were 86 for 1. And then wicket falls. And then Naveen Ul-Haq, who's usually very accurate, has an over that takes 13 deliveries. He goes wide, single, 5 no balls for one that was too high and slash for 4. Wide, 4. Wicket, 1, wide, 1. So 19 for 1 off the 13 ball over. And at that stage, Zimbabwe need 38 from 30, should get there. And then Rashid takes 2 wickets in and over. Majid bowls a tight over. Naveen takes another wicket. They need 10 off the last. And it just happens. Tashinga Musakiwa and Wellington Mazakadze. I'm always so glad to see. Hamilton has long since moved out of international cricket, but Wellington's still there. And their brother, Mount Maunganui, will come through in time. They hustle the 10 runs they need. They run a bunch of 2s. They get a boundary, I think, off the last ball, and they manage to get a win over Afghanistan. So, it's quite it could be quite a willing series between these two sides.
Oh, yeah. I mean, it almost reminds me of when Bangladesh and Zimbabwe used to always be at each other's throats in the early 2000s, when Bangladesh had just come into being as a test team, or even when Bangladesh and Kenya used to play a lot against each other back in the day.
Now it's Bangladesh-Sri Lanka.
It is Bangladesh-Sri Lanka. That is the rivalry in the subcontinent, the Asian subcontinent. But
what if they all came out? What if all the Bangladeshi players come out wearing Flavor Flav clocks next time they play, just hung around their necks? Because there's no prohibition on jewelry.
No, not at all. You can do that.
Your uniform doesn't ban jewelry. We see a lot of gold chains and things. So I don't think there's any regulation on how big a medallion could be.
Not really, especially if it can really have an impact on the opposition. Why not go for it? The Afghans will not be doing that for sure. But yeah, Hazratullah Zazai, like George Muncy, another one you throw into that mix. The chunky biffers of the ball. Yeah,
chunky biffers.
Yeah, chunky.
Sounds like a dog food.
It does actually. Yeah, I can see that. Yeah, with a very cute.
Do the right thing for your best friend with Chunky Biffers.
Chunky Biffers.
The final word brought to you by Chunky Biffers.
Ooh, maybe we have a trademark here. Let's finish this recording and trademark Chunky Biffers straight away. But I think it's going to be a fun series to keep an eye on because these two teams do play. There are a lot of close finishes with these two, and like we saw the last ball finish, and there is a third Masakadza.
Yeah, there is
Shingarai,
but he doesn't have.
He doesn't have
not named after a New Zealand
Napier
city.
Masakadza. It doesn't exist. Yeah,
no,
so,
sadly.
Well, maybe his parents got tired of
Dunedin.
New Zealand.
It only has so many cities that took their interest.
Yeah, true. Maybe it needed a New Zealand city which ends with ton.
Yeah,
they ran out of it
had
after
to be
Hamilton.
ton.
Yeah, Hamilton.
Surely there
Wellington.
are tons. There must have been tons.
Milton? I don't know.
Lots of Milton Sound? Milford Sound.
Milford
No,
Sound. Oh, how
can't.
good was our trip to Milford Sound?
It was. It's beautiful. It's one of those places that lived up to the billing.
It did.
And a few of those. Milford Sound, Rottnest Island.
Wanaka.
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 Oh, Wanaka was beautiful.
was-
Wanaka Mazakadza.
That
could be. That could be nice. And Rottnest and Stratford Island. They're places that live up to their billing. The England women beat South Africa's women 2-1 in their one-day series. Finally, a game when Nat Sivabrunt didn't make any runs and England actually won. She made a duck. Tammy Beaumont made 65, not out from 46 balls. They were chasing a Waikiki formula adjusted target of 152, down from 233 after Laura Woolfart made 61. They play a test in a few days in Bloemfontein, which I assume means like flower fountain or something in
nice city.
Afrikaans. And then Bangladesh, after they surprised West Indies in Kingston and won that test match there, which feels significant. Like a lot of teams going to the Caribbean and winning. Even Pakistan only won a series for the first time.
An easy place to win,
with the Yunus Misbah series in 2017. So they won a test. They only played two, leveled that series. The Windies bounced back with 2 ODI wins. Tanzid Hassan, Mahedi, Jason Mraz, and Mahmudullah's going to knock you out, all making runs. But Sherfane Rutherford made his first ton for the Windies, 113 off 80 balls, chased near 300, and then they chased 228 the next time around, much easier. Mostly notable because Tanzim Shakib Hassan, who's not to be confused with Tanzid Hassan, Tanzim Hassan. One opens the batting, one opens the bowling. The one I'm talking about now is the one with the Warhammer beard, who took a bunch of wickets in the T20 World Cup, whose work we enjoyed. He made 45 batting at number 9, his highest white ball score and best score for Pakistan. But they still didn't win. So that's it. That's my roundup of the world. Anything in there that takes your fancy?
Nah, not really. I think we have covered a lot of ground here. We started with the Champions Trophy, the impasse, and we've gone all around the world. I think we've covered every corner of the world. We even mentioned Kenya, even though we didn't go to Kenya.
Sure.
It's a bit like, I don't know whether you've noticed, right outside the Gabba at some point, there's a board. I think it was put up there for the 2015 World Cup, listing all the World Cup wins and the trophy wins. There's Australia, there's England, there's India. And then you get into the Kenyas and the Redbacks and the Bushrangers. And there's nothing in front of the Redbacks. There's nothing in front of Kenya. But probably the only board or only place where the Redbacks in Kenya exist. I mean, the Redbacks don't exist at all, like South Australia. The only thing we didn't talk about was the crazy Sheffield Shield game.
That is true, which we should have done.
Yeah, but what a brain. But my favorite bit was when they added the Bill Lawry commentary to it. Did you see that clip? Daniel Chani asked for it. It's spectacular. Ridiculous running with 2 balls to spare, except that this wasn't 2 balls to spare. It was the last ball of the match, and Riley Meredith just had to stay in his crease. It would have been a drawn game. But with the Sheffield Shield, and I'm bringing it up for a specific reason, a very parochial reason, as the Sheffield Shield goes into a break, who's on top? South Australia. I told the SEN SA guys, I said, they asked me after South Australia drew the first game against New South Wales. They said, Bharat, where do you think they're going to finish? I said, mark my words, they're going to win this year. And as of now, it's going to plan. Ever since I made my prediction, 2 wins, 1 loss, and now this crazy win.
Yeah, I mean, I think maybe we don't even, but like I could talk about it with Adam next week, or we could just go straight to story time. Like it's probably already, it should be a story time story in its own right. To have a team nearly chase 400 and then have a batting collapse needing like 10 to get, and then not only not get to the next 10 runs, but get bowled out on their way to it.
And they could have drawn it by just staying in their crease.
and as Matt pointed out, they might have been better off had they got the 2 runs they needed to tie, going for a third and getting run out, because you get more points for the tie.
Yeah, absolutely.
Which is a great piece of observation.
It is.
That's on our Storytime program that was published yesterday. Anyway, this may be the shortest weekly show ever, but that is fine by us because we've got previews galore. We've got a live show tonight, which I have to get to. And so it is a fitting time to call an end to proceedings. This has been The Final Word. If you want to support the show, patreon.com/thefinalword. You can get the ad-free feed with none of the automated breaks. You can become part of the Discord community, hang out and chat there, where people are signing up to run marathons together and playing in Final Word 11s and having chat sessions online and everything's going on there. It's a good time. It's a nice time. It's a wholesome time. You can be part of everything else that we're doing on there, and you can help us keep making the show that we make. Thanks to CBUS Super as well, their 40th anniversary. Sort out your super at cbussuper.com.au. Past performance, not a reliable indicator of future performance. From the Gabba, where we're recording this show. That's it. Bharat Sundaresan, Geoff Lemon. He's the first one. I'm the second one. We'll see you soon.